reached over the wall and picked up the wall with the phone in. It was my bag. That's my phone. So my phone is off, so I won't be shamed today. Okay, good. So we're all here to take on a 7-week meditation training. And some people here are fairly well experienced with meditation, and some people are completely new to meditation. So I'm going to be focusing on those people who are completely new. However, for those who have experience, this is the time, a nice 7-week period of time, to up your commitment into making sure that you do a daily meditation sitting. And don't worry too much about whether the meditation is nice or not nice, it's good or it's bad, your mind is bright or is dull. But for this period of time, try and do a daily meditation sitting. And then each week I'll ask you for feedback. Some of you who are completely new, I'm not sure yet, but we might kind of break up into smaller groups and have feedback with somebody with meditation experience. Very often just the act of interacting and talking with other people about your meditation really helps to help your own commitment. One of the difficulties with meditation is there is always something nicer to do. There's always something easier to do. It's always easier to pick up a newspaper, turn on the computer, pick up a book. Yeah, and books are good. There's always somebody to talk to. You can always turn on the TV and watch the news, watch a documentary. For me, YouTube is terrible. I can just chain watch YouTube. One thing after another thing after another thing. I like Judge Judy. Stupid things like that. It's just much easier to do. And what you do is you put the meditation off. And part of the feeling is, well, if I'm going to meditate, I'm going to meditate at a time when I really feel ripe for it. So I have a story to illustrate. I have a friend of mine, and he has a house on an island, just in case he's watching. And he said to me, because I said to him, he knows a lot about Buddhism. I said, but you never do any meditation. And he said, oh yeah, I do meditation. You don't know if I do meditation or not. I'm like, when do you do meditation? He's a workaholic. I said, there's no way, and he lives at the place where he works. I said, there's no way you do meditation here because you have too many things. He said, yeah, I can't do it in my house here. But when I go to my island, then I can meditate. And I happen to know that on the island at that time, there was a lot of construction. I said, can you do the meditation while they're doing the construction? And he said, oh, no, I have to wait till they finish. Okay. I also know that his house there is a single room. It's a fairly large room, but a single room house. And I said, well, there's you and your wife there at the same time. And he said, yeah, I can't do it while she's in there. And then I'm like, well, so he said, no, I go outside and I sit with nature and it's beautiful. I'm like, well, I know that even one mosquito drives you crazy. So he said, no, I can't go out when there's mosquitoes. And then I said, what about the hot season? He said, oh, it's too hot to go and sit outside. I'm like, so what have you got left? His idea of meditation, if it's not too hot and it's not too cold and there are no mosquitoes and his wife isn't there and he's on his island and it's nice weather, then he can meditate. That's not meditation. That's chilling out. That's relaxing in nature, which is great to do, but that's not meditation. He didn't agree with me, but there you go. So our meditation system, our meditation practice is something that we want to try and arouse and maintain. And the biggest obstacle to meditation, in fact, is the ease of distractions. There's just always things that are easier, more habitual, that you can get involved in, that you can pick up and do instead. So the knack is not to wait until you happen to be in a really beautiful state of mind and then say, hey man, I'm a really good meditator. A good meditator is someone who will do the practice day in, day out, regardless of how your state of mind feels. You want to try and bring the meditation to every single state of mind. Okay, for those who are new, the path of meditation, there are different reasons for people to get interested in meditation. For me, I read a book about these monks who would live up in caves on the side of the mountain. One monk, he was in Sri Lanka, and the biggest event of the day that happened to him every day was eating his food, and the second biggest event was brushing his teeth. I thought, yeah, that's me. Don't need to talk to anybody. I don't have to interact with anybody. I can just be completely on my own and absorbed in, super mundane states of mind and not be involved with the world. And that really suited me. I was not keen on the world, and I didn't have too much ambition for things like jobs and relationships and things like that. Not the best motivation, right? Other people, well, one person that I know got diabetes, and like the early stages of diabetes, so meditation was recommended as part of the meditation, the diet and the exercise in order to overcome the diabetes. And it seemed to work. Whether it was the diet, the exercise, or the meditation, we don't know. A friend of mine, his daughter was, he's a meditation teacher, and his daughter used to go with him on meditation retreats for years and years, but she wasn't interested in doing the meditation. She'd play and read and do different things. And as she got older, when she was about 16, on the meditation retreat, there was a really beautiful, really poised 20-year-old girl. And the 16-year-old was so enamored with this girl, thought she was so beautiful and so poised, that and if she wanted to do a meditation retreat, well then the girl would too. So she started meditating for that reason. What are your reasons for wanting to come and meditate? Can be all kinds of different motivations. But one of the things that we find is the motivation will tend to change the more meditation that you do. Whatever it was that originally pulled you through the door, as you get involved with meditation, as you start to take up a daily practice, it gains a momentum of its own. And you don't really need reasons for it. Reasons are all things part of the ego, part of the thinking. But when you get into the practice, you're really putting down that whole kind of ego, that whole I am, the whole kind of mental life that we live in, is putting that down and finding somewhere else to dwell. Now, sometimes that's easy, and sometimes that's difficult. So the biggest challenge, as I said, is to be able to do this consistently. Yesterday I was doing my meditation, and, well, actually I was trying to install Photoshop on my computer. Not a happy time that I was having, to be honest. And so while I was doing this, but I just wanted to sit. And every so often, every hour or so, I'd be like, I've had enough. beating my head against a brick wall and windows hanging and crashing. And then I'd go and sit, and my mind was just so beautiful and still and bright. I'm like, I don't care about Photoshop. I just want to sit right here. This is it. And so I don't know, I was doing about 4 or 5 hours of meditation yesterday. And this morning I think, I have to come and give the talk today. I'll get myself into the right space for the, so I can talk to you all. And then nothing. Just mind jumping around backwards and forwards, wouldn't settle down. Meditation is not about the experience that you're having. In those two examples, last night and this morning, I'm comparing what the experience is. And it's your ego that judges, I'm doing it right, now I'm getting that, oh, now I can't do it, I'm so terrible. You need to get past that kind of thinking mind. When you put the thinking mind down, well, if the mind is great or the mind's not great, that's all part of judging and thinking. That's all part of this mechanism that you're trying to actually get away from. So the meditation needs to be something that's consistent, and it will take on a life of its own because it's independent to your kind of ego and what you want and what you're aiming to get from it. On the wider scale of things, the goal of meditation is called enlightenment. So this is what saints and sages around the world have been in search of. In every tradition, in every culture, you have a group of people that kind of withdraw from society somewhat, recluses, saints, sages, hermits, people who have looked at the world in the normal sense, but have seen something else. And every culture, in every age, all around the world, you've had people who do this. In Christianity, you had the Desert Fathers, the Philokalia. I don't know if anyone has tried reading that. It's quite a beautiful book if you can read it. Saint Teresa of Avila, the Spanish mystic, during the Spanish Inquisition, her and her disciple or follower, St. John of the Cross. These were real hardcore meditators. In India, you've had it. All the Upanishads are written from these really deep experiences that people were having. China, as soon as Buddhism got to China, it was picked up very quickly because they had this feel for that ultimate goal. What is the ultimate goal, this enlightenment? Well, we can study it, we can talk about it, I can give you the definitions for it. But for this period of 7 weeks, we're not too focused on what the ultimate goal is. We're focused on what you need to do. So as we get into the meditation practice, we are embarking on this same path that all these people have followed before us. And so we're joining a worldwide, humanity-long tradition of people who are interested and willing to stop and turn the mind around and turn the mind back inwards on a path of discovery. So, meditation is something that we will, or one does learn only by doing it. Nobody can really teach you meditation. I can't say certain things and then you just catch it and then you can do it. I watched this documentary, again, YouTube, of a small group of people who made bicycles that when you turn the steering wheel left, the wheel will turn right. And when you turn right, turn your handlebars right, the wheel will turn left. And they had great fun putting everybody on these bicycles and watching them fall off. And just one or two of the researchers were really determined to master it. And They tried every technique they could think of to try and master it, and they just couldn't. And then the guy said, one day it just clicked. And from that second on, I could ride the bicycle. And then he got back on a regular bicycle, and it was, he was falling off for a few minutes, but then that clicked, and then he could switch between the bicycles. There was a moment where the knowledge came alive. This is one way of learning things. In psychology, you call it insight learning. That means the animal that you are testing will suddenly figure out what it is that needs to be done. Very briefly, in psychology, they had two schools, behaviorism and cognitive insight learning. And the first school, they did these experiments with cats, and they put a cat in a box, and the cat has to escape from the box to get the food. To escape from the box, it has to hit a lever. When it hits the lever, the door opens, it gets its food. You put the cat back in the box, and what does the cat do? Does the cat hit the lever again? No, it carries on doing random actions until eventually it hits the lever. And then you put the cat back in the box. Poor cat gets frustrated. And slowly, but slowly, it gets faster and faster for the cat to hit the lever. But the cat never has a moment where it figures out what to do. Compared to monkeys, they had chimpanzees, and they put them in a room. In the room is a table, a chair, and a broom. And high up on the wall is some bananas hanging. And the only way to get the bananas is to move the table, put the chair on the table, stand on the chair with the broom, and you can unhook the bananas. And it took a while for the chimpanzees to figure this out. But the moment they'd figured it out, every time you put them in that room, they will immediately do that action. It means that they've cognitively understood the process. So, to cognitively, when you get that moment where you suddenly understand something, you get like a flush of happiness. It's a little boost of endorphins will go around the body. I remember distinctly the first day that I understood how a magnet worked, and it was only about 3 years ago. I was watching Richard Feynman. If anyone watched Richard Feynman? It's probably one. It's probably a bit old for most of you, a bit young for it. And I suddenly, that's it, that's how a magnet works. I could never understand why you could attach a magnet to a piece of metal and it doesn't fall off. But there's no battery. And now I understand it. Don't ask me to explain it to you. But... So there is a moment that we get of happiness when we have attained to new knowledge, when we've understood something new. But the meditation that we do is not like that. Meditation is something that you don't apply your mind and your intelligence and then you've figured it out. That's what it is. It's not something that you can do even slowly over a matter of weeks, over 7 weeks. You're not going to get to the end of 7 weeks and then, now I know meditation. I just go and do it, and every day I sit there for an hour and I'm just, hey man, I'm really cool. It's not going to happen. Meditation is something that you can only learn by doing it. And this was a difficulty for many years trying to teach meditation, because I was trying to make people understand. And you can't. You may understand something intellectually. You may understand how a magnet can stick to the side of the fridge without the need for a battery. But you'll never understand meditation and that's what it is. So the meditation is only something that you can learn by doing it. You have to just do it. It's your journey. It's you turning your attention around and bringing it inside your own mind. You might call it a self-reflectivity. So instead of the mind pouring outwards into the things of the world, all those things that are exciting, stimulating, interesting, YouTubes and emails and books and conversations and TVs and parties and food and all the rest of it, these will all pull your attention outside of yourself. And one reason you like those things is because you're not feeling yourself. So, for example, when you go to see a movie, what's the difference between a good movie and a bad movie? The difference is, a good movie sucks you in. You get pulled into the story. If you're not pulled into the story, well, you know, the seat is too small and the person next to you is rustling toffee wrappers and someone else is scratching and the air conditioning isn't right, or it's too hot or it's too cold. You know, you don't like to feel yourself. We like to be completely absorbed outside of ourselves. So turning the attention back inwards is quite a job. You're reversing the flow of the mind, if you like. The Buddha called it the worldly stream, and he said you're going against the worldly stream. There are different ways to look at it, but for example, the Chinese were very much, when Buddhism got to China, they were very much, well, you go into the worldly stream, you go into the flow of nature. But Indian Buddhism was very clear, as you go against that worldly stream of the attention flowing outside of yourself into things to do, things to have, things to listen to, things to eat, things to occupy your attention. I had this one friend, he was studying Thai, and he went to I can never remember, Unity or Union. There's two really good schools in Thailand, in Bangkok. And the school was, at that time, near Plenchit Center. And he lived at On Nut. So 5 days a week, he would take the SkyTrain from On Nut to Plenchit. And a very good friend of mine, but he never had any interest in meditation until the very end, but that's another story. And he said to me that he goes by SkyTrain, and he said, but fortunately, he said, he got his iPod. Shows how long ago that was. He said, fortunately, I've got my iPod. It's a total lifesaver. Like, why is your iPod a lifesaver? Because that trip from On Nut to Plenchit was too unbearable because he didn't have something to occupy himself with. He needed something that would just occupy his attention. Otherwise, he'd have to just feel himself, right? And he felt that was very uncomfortable. And this is true for pretty much everybody. Until you train yourself, it's always going to be more comfortable to have your attention outside of yourself into some kind of activity. Bringing the attention into yourself at first is going to be a little uncomfortable. So sometimes when people are really new to meditation, they can feel a little panicked, or the breath will go too fast, because you're not accustomed to it. However, what's happening is, as you bring your attention in, the mind is still wavering a lot. And the mind that's wavering or moving is uncomfortable. If we keep practicing, you get accustomed to feeling yourself, knowing yourself, being wakeful. And this starts to become the most beautiful thing that you can experience. So yesterday, while I'm doing Photoshop, trying to get my Photoshop installed, it took me all day and I still failed because it's not as nice. It's better to bring my attention inside. My attention is home. My attention is still. My attention is bright. I don't need to go anywhere at all. This is what we call a refuge. There's a technical word called a sarana, or refuge. And a refuge means it's a place that you can place your mind, which doesn't depend on anything. Doesn't depend upon having the right food to eat. Food is a really big thing, you know. You might not think it is, but you come and live in the monastery and you get the kind of food that we have to eat. And, you know, within a few days, you're starting to realize what a big thing food is for most people. I had a friend of mine, he had gout, and the doctor told him drink water. He's like, I don't like to drink water. I mean, like, our food obsessions are so strong that they'll even prefer illness to changing our kind of food and drink habits. So this refuge doesn't depend upon having the right food, it doesn't depend upon having a nice building or a nice house or a nice place, it doesn't depend on having the nicest people around you, it doesn't depend upon your partner. You know, so many people I know, their happiness depends on their partner. It's not a very reliable place to to ground your sense of happiness in your partner, right? Other people are not terribly reliable. Who was it said hell is other people? It was Sartre, was it? Yeah. So, if you have developed this refuge, what happens is, like, you have a place to place your mind, which is always there, it's always right. It's independent of the states of mind. This is important. Because meditation is not making your state of mind very happy and very beautiful. It's having a place to rest independent of the state of mind. So your state of mind may be highly agitated, may be unhappy, it may be bright, it may be dull. Behind all of those states of mind actually is this really cool, bright, clear, awake resting place. It's right there, right? In fact, it's so close to you, you don't notice it. And this is what we are trying to cultivate through the meditation. Some years ago, I had this crazy doctor told me I had cancer, which I didn't, but he told me I had lymphoma. And I don't like hospitals at the best of time. In fact, just going anywhere near a hospital, in fact, even just the word, it makes me feel a bit queasy. And so I was already feeling very out of sorts. And then he said, you know, I think you really may well have lymphoma. I'm like, oh man. And then I went to lie down because I was feeling all dizzy. And he said to me one of the most stupid things I've ever heard in my life. He said, why are you lying down? I said, I just need a minute to stop. And he said, why? I said, because, like, what do you mean, why? Because I don't want to die. And he said to me the most utterly ridiculous thing. He said, why are you afraid of dying? You're a monk. Like, you're not helping the situation here. Even while that was happening, I could still feel this sense of refuge. There was still this sense of this stillness, place of stillness, a place of brightness, a place of alertness that was independent of even that feeling, even being afraid that I'm going to die. It was 12 years ago, I'm not dead yet, so I should go back and see him really, shouldn't I? So, this is what we're trying to develop, this sense of refuge. And it's right there inside you. It's right there in or amongst or between every single state of mind that you can possibly have. It's right there. It's going to take some digging out. And to dig it out takes time. It takes commitment. And 7 weeks won't do it. 7 months won't do it. This is at least a lifetime practice. At least a lifetime practice. You never really get to the point where you say, okay, now I know how I can do meditation. There's always more and more layers, there's always more and more tricks that the mind will play upon you. So at least one lifetime. That's why I wrote upon here, above all, be patient. So we're going to do some meditation, and we're going to go back to the very basic core method for meditation, which is to sit and watch the breathing. The breathing is a meditation object, and you can have any one of hundreds or thousands of different meditation objects. Usually meditation objects are things like a mantra, words that you can recite. Visual things. If you're very visual, you can focus on things that you can see, from light to a candle to even to a very intricate bodhisattva picture, and really strongly visualize. Those are some. There are many body-based forms of meditation. We do the Qigong here every Thursday as a good way to bring your attention in the body. We do walking meditation. But amongst all of these different meditation objects that you can use, the one that we use most commonly is the breathing. And there are a couple of good reasons for this. One is, when you do the meditation, we make sure that on the in-breath, the abdomen expands. On the out-breath, the abdomen contracts. This is called yogic breathing. And if you are stressed or in a difficult situation, then you would tend to breathe in at the chest. So you watch boxers when they're fighting, and when they sit down in the corner after, between rounds, they're breathing in at the chest here, right? When you get stressed, you will tend to breathe in using the chest muscles, which are actually a lot stronger than the abdomen muscles, but they use up a lot of energy. When we breathe in from the abdomen, it means that we're relaxed. So when we come to do the meditation, if you make sure that you're doing the abdominal breathing, the abdomen expands with the in-breath, contracts with the out-breath, this will automatically key you into a calmer state of mind. It's called a biofeedback mechanism. This is the reason why when police come to your house and give you bad news, they tell you to sit down and have a glass of water ready. Because when you're drinking water, it signals to yourself, well, if I'm eating and drinking, I must be in a reasonably calm situation. When you're stressed, you don't usually want to eat or drink, unless it's ice cream. So the breathing, especially from the abdomen, will signal to you that this is a time when you're feeling in a safe and relaxed place, and has that biofeedback mechanism onto the mind. Second thing is, the breath will be a very good barometer, will indicate to you how you're feeling at the moment. And the whole idea of meditation, or insight meditation that we do here, is that you start to really see yourself more clearly. Okay? I could tell you how to change. I could tell you, be more compassionate, be nicer, feed the cats, and, ask your children what they're studying at school, and I could blah, blah, blah. I could do all kinds of things. You could do the same with me. There's plenty of things in life that I do wrong. To simply use the ego or the intellect to say, well, this is how you should be, or this is how I should be, is not a very good long-term plan. It's not going to change you very much. Years ago, I went from England to New Zealand because it was as far away from England as I could get. And on the flight there, I invented an entirely new character that I was going to be. Forget this other person in England. Now I'm going to be this completely new character. I can clean the board. Of course, within 2 weeks, I'm exactly the same as I was when I left England, because I'd carried the exact same personality along with me. Setting forth goals, I'm going to be like this or this or this, it's not going to change you very much. We do this kind of work. It's called adhitthana, or resolution. And this is when we do things like bowing practice or chanting practices. So we can take a long-term, deliberate, conscious effort to change our behavior. But in Buddhism, the tool that we use is called insight. And insight means that you are being aware of yourself. As I discussed earlier, most of the time, most of you are not aware of yourself. You like to be aware of what you're eating, what you're doing, who you're talking to, what you are looking at, where you are driving, what you are planning, anything except feel yourself. So our vehicle of change in the meditation is observation. Neither I nor anybody else is going to tell you how you should be. It's up to you yourself to determine that with your own intelligence and your own wisdom. But the meditation will give you a tool whereby you can see how you are. And seeing how you are is what will start to change you in a way that your ego can't, your intellect can't do it. You can't set forth those kind of goals. Those people who have been meditating a long time, you get days or months when you feel like you're really cracking it and like, oh yeah, I've got it going, and then months when it just doesn't seem to work. That's just the waves on the surface of the ocean. The undercurrents to the ocean is what will really move you and change you. And when you look back over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, then you say, oh, that is a complete change. I know for myself that before I was doing meditation, my happiness just depended upon other people and other things so much of the time. Depended on my parents, depended on my friends, it depended on my car. All these kind of things that I was so invested in. And these days my happiness doesn't really depend upon anybody. It depends upon me and me alone. Sometimes I get really beautiful places to live and to be in. And sometimes, I get really terrible situations. I stayed in Koh Samui in this Kamalaya resort, is it? It's, he knows it, very well plush, high-class, expensive resort. And I had 3 nights there. I was like, oh, this is the life, the life of a monk, come here. Another time I was in the temple and I just rolled up and asked to stay the night, and they put me in this really disgusting room. Like, had spit all up the walls, there was no windows, and full of mosquitoes, and some days you get good, some days you get bad. My happiness doesn't depend upon the things around me. It only depends upon myself. So as you sit and breathe, the breathing is a very good barometer. It will start to point to you how you are actually feeling. And this, turning the attention back inwards and starting to observe, know thyself. Wasn't that written above the Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi? It was written, a Greek phrase, know thyself. I'm looking at you here. Socrates. Yeah, but it was written above the doorway of the entrance to where the Oracle of Delphi was. Written, know thyself. So that's what we're trying to do. You're trying to know yourself, bring your attention back, and your breath will give